All right, how we going, guys? Welcome to a special edition of your On the Boxing Deep Dive channel. Because in this episode, what we're going to do is just see where Oleksandr Usyk falls into the scheme of things in the heavyweight history of boxing. Now, excuse me. So what we're going to do, well, just in light of the weekend's fights, of course, Oleksandr Usyk became the first heavyweight undisputed champion in the four-belt era. Now, before you say, now, hang on, Lyndon, Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield fought for the four belts back in 1999. That is not the case. I said that on one, I think it was Talking Boxing the other day. They fought for the WBA, WBC, IBF, and IBO belts, not the WBO belts. So that was certainly not the case. So the first time undisputed champion in the four-belt era, holding the WBC, the WBA, IBF, and WBO World Championship. So what's come up in the last couple of days since the fight is, I won't call it an argument, but it's just a discussion, and sometimes heated, sometimes not, about where exactly does Oleksandr Usyk fall into the scheme of things in heavyweight history. So I thought tonight we would go through that, some fors and against, or some suggestions about where he is and where he's not. And I'm going to actually go through my top 10 of all time and where he falls in that, in my opinion. But just like any episode that we do like this, I need your input. Not so much if you're obviously watching this after the fact, or you can put your comments down below, of course, in the comment section, or listening later on Spotify. It's probably more a reason why I like to do these things live, so I can have live discussions about what you guys think. So I'm sure you're going to give me your opinions on who is in the top 10 and who, or when I put mine up, who should be and who shouldn't be, and that's fine. And just as always, guys, this is just people's opinions. Okay, so one thing I like to pride myself on these types of episodes is we give everyone a fair shake, let them have the say. We don't ridicule them. We don't tell them they're full of shit. We don't tell them they don't know anything about boxing. That might be for other YouTube channels or podcasts, whatever it might be. But even though I might not agree with you, I'm certainly not going to tell you don't know what you're talking about. Well, not to your face anyway. I'm just joking. All right, so we've got a couple of people in the chat already. We've got Andrew Williams. G'day, Andrew. How you going, mate? What do you got there? Oh, you've given me your list. Okay. Ali, Johnson, is this in order, Andrew? Let me know. Ali, Johnson, Lewis, Foreman, Fraser, Holmes, Lewis, Marciano, Liston, Tyson, Dempsey, Tunney, Bowe, Holyfield, Fury, Usyk, Schmeling, rated at the peak. So I'm assuming that's just a general overview. Now, look, that's probably not a bad way to do it, because sometimes when we do these lists, it's so hard to get the mix right. Some people see things in different ways, and that's cool. Sometimes it might just be say, hey, these are the best 10 of all time. Just throw them up in the air, and wherever they land is the actual order. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put it in order. I'm going to respond to you guys out there that are putting your comments in the chat there, and then we can compare and talk about it, and as I said, discuss, debate, whatever it might be. Now, actually, before we get into it, we've got Damien Rochester. How are you, Damien? You've got this is not your heavyweight list here. What do you got here? Hey, guys, if anyone is wondering, the 5x5 event in Saudi next weekend is $33.99 on DAZN, and the Tank Davis versus Frank Martin fight is $49.95 on KO main event. Thanks, Damien. Thanks for that, mate. If you're looking to do that, geez, not sure I'll be paying $50 for Tank Davis and Frank Martin, if I'm going to be honest here, Damien. But that's another discussion. No problems with the $34 for the 5x5, by the way. Andre Rodriguez is in the chat. How you going, Andre? What do you got there, mate? Good morning, everyone. I'm in Portugal, so I believe it's good evening over there. It certainly is, mate. It is 7:04 in the PM here in Australia. All right, so Andrew says that's a yes for just the total people in that heavyweight division. Andre says, hope I got that right, Andre. Is it Andre? Andre, we'll call you Andre. No, today's heavyweight is close to the all-time top 25. Well, this is why we're here, Andre, because I've had it or heard it said over the last 2 or 3 days that Oleksandr Usyk is now one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. And this is probably the reason I wanted to do this episode. Where does he rank in the annals, I suppose, the halls of heavyweight history? Because one thing I'll say right off the bat, Oleksandr Usyk has had 6 fights at heavyweight. So do we rate him as one of the greatest fighters of all time or one of the greatest heavyweights of all time? Now, in those 6 fights, I will say, he's beaten Anthony Joshua twice, Tyson Fury. I suppose you could throw in Daniel Dubois in there as well, who's about to he's going to fight Hrgovic next, of course, but may fight Joshua after that. So it's not a bad sort of 6 opponents. I think Chaz Witherspoon was just obviously his first foray into the division, and that's fine. He did fight Derek Chisora as well. So, yeah, look, he's definitely got the form just in those 6 fights. So does that count, the fact he only has 6 fights? Now, we could throw that argument probably at, I don't know, a Michael Spinks. Not that I've got him in my top 10, but he's a great champion back in the day. I think we forget about what Mike Tyson did to him, of course. But, he only had a handful of fights as well and beat Larry Holmes twice. Jerry Cooney, Stefan Tangstead, I think was the other one. So, anyway, that's an argument for another day. We're talking about Oleksandr Usyk. But it's just an interesting topic because I've heard some and seen, whether it be YouTube, podcast, whatever it is, I try and have these things going all day while I'm working and listen to what people say. And there's been some really compelling arguments to say that Oleksandr Usyk is definitely in the top 10 heavyweights of all time. And some saying, well, hang on, he's had 6 fights and Fury and Joshua aren't exactly all-time greats themselves. So this is why we're here, guys. So I'll keep going with the comments. And as I said, I'll get to my top 10 and my arguments in relation to my top 10. All right, Andre, what do you got there, mate? Sam Langford, yes. Ali, Joe Lewis, Jack Johnson, Joe Genet. Geez, you're going back a fair bit of time there, Andre. George Foreman, Larry Holmes, Joe Fraser, Sam McVeigh, Lennox Lewis, Bob Fitzsimmons, Evander Holyfield, Vladimir Klitschko, and Floyd Patterson. Okay, well, that's a lot of fighters there, mate. And Max Schmeling. Now, look, I'm going to say straight off the bat there, though, Andre, get away from the historical significance of a name like Max Schmeling. I know he beat Joe Lewis at his peak, but does that really give him the argument of being in the top 10 heavyweights of all time? I wouldn't think so. I think beating Joe Lewis back in the day was obviously a monumental effort. Got wiped out in about 30 seconds in the rematch. So, but apart from that, who exactly did he beat? This is probably just some of the things I'm going to throw out there, guys. I'm not having a go at you. I'm not telling you don't know what you're talking about. I'm just asking the question to justify some of these picks. And I was just going to say, Andrew, you beat me to the punch here. Sam Langford was welterweight, middleweight, who beat heavyweights but lost to Johnson. Yeah. So I don't think you can even have him in the conversation, to be honest, Andre, just in my opinion. Let's go through a few others there before we get into Oleksandr Usyk argument. So Joe Jeanette, I must admit, I haven't really heard of Joe Jeanette. Maybe I'm showing my falling down in a few areas there as far as knowing my history, but I must admit, followed boxing since I've been 10 years old, and I haven't heard of Joe Jeanette, Andre, so I apologise for that. Foreman, Holmes, Fraser, McVeigh. Now, was he heavyweight as well? Fraser, we said that Fitzsimmons or Holyfield, Klitschko, Floyd Patterson. Look, I'd probably put a line through Floyd Patterson as well, Andre, if I'm being completely honest. Yes, he did hold the heavyweight title, but got absolutely demolished by Sonny Liston. Beaten easy by Ali as well. I'm not quite sure. Look, I suppose we could have a group of about 20, but we've got to knuckle down to the top 10. And obviously the big question in this one is, okay, Andre, you're just putting my top 25. Okay, well, I've only put my top 10. What's that? Sam Langford had a record of over 90 fights. Is that right? Against heavyweights? I didn't know he had that many. I knew he fought at heavyweight, but didn't know he had that many. But, look, as I said, we're talking about Oleksandr Usyk in this situation. So to look at Oleksandr Usyk's record. All right, so 22-0, 14 KOs. Can we have someone that's only had 22 fights and 6 of those at heavyweights in the all-time heavyweight greats? Not so sure. Obviously, 2-time undisputed, once at cruiserweight, now at heavyweight. And as I said, the first 4-belt champion of the main belts, that is. And the wins over Witherspoon, Chisora, Joshua ×2, Dubois, and Fury. So, look, I think that alone, the resume there will say, if you count the fact that he won the heavyweight, the cruiserweight title, and has beaten Joshua twice and Fury twice, to just put a little bit of disclaimer out there or a bit of a nibble at what I'm going to have for my top 10, I think I would definitely have him, just based on that alone, in my top 10. And I know, like you said there, Andre, Sam Langford might have had the 90 fights, but who were they against? This is the thing. I never count numbers on records as the precursor to my opinions. I just don't rate. And one of those especially is one of everyone's favourite out there is Rocky Marciano, 49-0. But I'll go through that later when I bring him up. But what was the quality of opposition like? Oleksandr Usyk, come from the undisputed cruiserweight title, went to heavyweight, has given away monumental amounts of weight to those guys he's fought along the way, a bit like Holyfield probably did early in his career, and Spinks, of course. And he's managed to beat probably the 2 dominant fighters of his generation in Fury and Joshua. I suppose the only other one you could probably throw in him, well, I was just going to say Wilder, probably not. Probably just as far as his star power goes, not so much as far as ability goes. And then you would go back a little bit to the Klitschko's and those types of guys. But, yeah, look, one thing I will say with all this, it is an extremely tough gig to do this, and everyone has different reasons. The one thing, as I said, I'll implore you to do is not count numbers on a sheet as far as records go. If you go through the box rec records of all these fighters, you can see some pretty horrific stuff as far as the records go and who they fought early in their careers and everything else, and probably more so back in the day. And that's not a slight at the fighters back then, because they fought as a job. These days, well, I know they get very well paid, but back then fought for peanuts. So you had to fight pretty much every 2 or 3 weeks, and that's what they did. So it didn't really matter who you come up against. These days, it's more quality over quantity. Back then, it was just quantity. Let's just get these fights out until you're obviously at the absolute top of the table. Damien, Tommy Morrison would have knocked most of these guys out, and that's another thing, Damien, isn't it? This is what we have to look at. This is why I'm going to be quite prepared to justify to try and explain and justify my list when I do it in a sec. But that's a good argument. This is the argument I also make with guys like Rocky Marciano. And I know there's a lot of Rocky Marciano fans out there and aren't going to be overly happy with what I have to say, but very, very small, limited heavyweight, in my opinion. However, you've got to judge them as you see them, and I still have him in my top 10, but just. But anyway, I'm not going to give too much away. I'll bring it up in a minute. Andre says, I repeat, 90 fights, dozen against Hall of Fame pure heavyweights. Well, put them in the chat there, mate. You say my list is based on record, not fantasy fights. Okay, well, all right. Well, while we're going there, I'm actually going to bring this up. You won't be able to see this for a sec, but I'm going to actually bring him up as we talk about it. I'm going to just see if I hope I can find some holes in what you're saying there, Andre, because I didn't have him in my top 10, that's for sure. Anyway, I'll quickly bring him up. If this internet will work here, it's probably not going to work overly great because I'm obviously streaming at the moment, but we'll wait for that to come up. All right, well, that's your decision, Andre, and that is 100% fine, mate. Andrew says, Usyk not top 10 yet, wins over Fury and Joshua, both not great fighters. Okay, yep. The only thing I'll probably say to that, Andrew, is who would you have in front of him and why? And probably one fighter I'd maybe bring up is someone like a Jack Dempsey, one of the history's supposedly greatest fighters. His legacy is huge. He's obviously a legend. But who did he actually beat to justify that, apart from the aura about Jack Dempsey? I'm just asking the question. If you can justify it, no dramas whatsoever. But it's guys like him. Looking at his record, I just don't see where the quality of opponents are compared to even someone like an Usyk. I know you said Joshua and Fury maybe in the history of boxing maybe aren't, the top echelon. But look, they both, up until they lost to Usyk, by the way, both deemed as maybe future all-time greats in the division. So, all right, there's the Boston Bone Crusher. All right, wow. You are right, though, Andre. 178 wins, 30 losses, 38 draws. He's a Canadian. That's unusual because I thought he was American. Born in Canada, raised in Boston, Massachusetts. What a town or city that is, Boston. Been there a couple of times. Love it over there. I don't know. Well, again, Andre, can we rate someone that's had 30 losses on their career? This is why it's so hard. This is why I love getting the feedback from you guys out there because, I'd probably have to go through his record a little bit more, to be honest. But, yeah, I've never really heard of Sam being recognised in the all-time greats, Andre. But what did you say? Schmeling didn't only fought Joe Louis twice. He fought Jack Sharkey, Max Bayer, young Stribling. Yeah, well, I'm glad you know your history there, Andre. It's fantastic. But how did he go against those guys? Look, I probably don't you hate it when someone knows more than you sometimes? I'm going to look at his record here. I know he fought some of those contenders, Andre, but so he got KO'd by one. So look at his record just quickly. So he lost by KO to Max Bayer. Was beaten by Jack Sharkey. It's one thing to fight these guys, Andre, but what are the decisions? I know he beat young Stribling. Okay, that's okay. He did have a win by disqualification over Jack Sharkey. So I'll go over that quickly, but apart from that disqualification win over Jack Sharkey, man, hasn't really had any notable wins in history. So that's just my argument to that, I suppose. There's Andy in the comment section. How are you there, mate? Give us your take on where does Oleksandr Usyk fall in the scheme of things, Andy? I would love to know. Sam Langford fought, Jack Johnson, Sam McVeigh, Joe Janot, Jim. Yeah, where are they in the history books, Andre? Look, I really appreciate you being in this comment, in this chat, by the way, because obviously you know your stuff, and that is awesome. So I'm not arguing with you. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying that, okay, there's some names in there, but are they really just the equivalent of a Daniel Dubois these days, or Jack Zhang or Parker, one of these types of guys? No, not necessarily all-time greats themselves. I think, as I said, like Joshua and Fury were well on the path to probably being known. I mean, a lot of people, not the ones that I don't think know a lot about boxing, said Fury could have been in the conversation of being in the top 3 or 4 greatest heavyweights of all time. I think, obviously, Oleksandr Usyk put that to bed on the weekend, but it's just amazing how people see it different ways. Yeah, Bayer, KO, Schmeling in 10. Yes, Andrew. Body of work more important than getting KO by whoever, which, by the way, is a worked champion. Body of work. It is, but the body of work's got to include some significant wins there, Andre. And one thing is fighting good guys. It's another thing to actually be beating good guys or great fighters. Because, I mean, I'm going to go through my list soon and I'll explain why I've gone. And a lot of them have beaten multiple good fighters or the best fighters of the generation. And not to say that those guys that you've just mentioned for Sam Langford weren't good fighters back in the day, but certainly none of them, I don't think. I mean, Max Bayer, Jack Sharkey maybe get a bit of a mention, obviously Joe Louis, but not many of them really get spoken about. And it's really hard because we have limited vision of them as well. We're relying on records. And as I said, records can be very deceiving. Keep them coming there, Andre. That's what all-time greats are made of, body of work. Yeah, I will agree with that. I'm just mentioning top 25. That's all. That's fine, mate. That's nothing wrong with that. Double G says, Usyk is amazing, no doubt. However, he doesn't yet have that dominant reign over time defending his heavyweight belts. Good call there, mate. Good call. Andre says this, what's up there? This said, Usyk is, along with Inoue, my favourite fighter of this generation. Yeah, he's very easy to like, isn't he? Double G, did you see the video when Usyk met Holyfield after the fight on the weekend? He seriously looked like a giggling kid that just met Santa. Great moment. It was really good, wasn't it, Double G? And I think as far as that nice guy criteria, he definitely ticks the boxes there. He ticks the boxes as far as obviously being able to fight. Ticks so many boxes as Oleksandr Usyk, and so humble, so generous with his time. I mean, he doesn't say a lot, especially in the lead up to the fights, but wow, just a great example and role model to have as heavyweight champion. Andrew says Dempsey beat Carpentier, Furpo, Sharkey, hadn't fought for 3 years. Hang on. Before lost to Tunney. Yeah. Hadn't fought for 3 years before. Yeah. Tunney beat him twice, of course. Look, like Andre said, Andrew, it's just that body of work. And look, some of the fighters I've got on my list, yeah, are probably pretty close with certain other fighters out there, but yeah, I just can't see, in my opinion, how some of those fighters could just dethrone a few of the guys that I've got on my list anyway. So, all right, so I'm just going to make a change here. Sorry. All right. So excuse me while I do my thing here. Just downloading. All right. Yeah, no, I get that. What else have we got there? There's Carl. What do you got here, mate? Lennox Lewis, for me, is one of the best heavyweights. His resume is insane. I was wondering how long it would take for Lennox to get a mention. I'm just seeing what's going on here, guys. I'm just trying to download something, and it's not letting me at the moment, so apologies for that. All right, so that's just downloading there. All right, so I just had a spelling mistake in my list there, so apologies for that. I've just got to put it back on the, or load it back in, so I'll be 1 second there. All right. All right, some more comments there, guys. Andre again. Example, Fury had 6 title fights prior to Usyk. Half of them against the same fighter. Yeah, there are levels. That's what I'm saying. Mate, I agree with you. I 100% agree. There are levels. And that was always, I must say, one of my arguments with the Tyson Fury situation. I wouldn't have had him anywhere near the top 10 of all time. Love what he's done for the sport. But end of the day, the 3 Wilder fights were great. And the Klitschko win obviously was fantastic. But I think, I've said it a few times, Wilder for me is probably one of the most least talented, overrated heavyweight champions of all time. The fact he had 10 title defenses, hey, good on him. But I cannot believe he could, even with the level of competition that he had, that he could get 10 title defenses. I know he fought a couple of twice, but what's that, Carl? Not sure where Usyk rates in the top 10 to 20, but he's beating the best of this era. I don't see anyone beating him. Well, yeah, look, I think Tyson Fury on his day could beat him. Not so sure Anthony Joshua could beat him. Not so sure a Parker or a Zhang or a Wilder. Wilder would have a puncher's chance. But, yeah, I think Fury he went away from the game plan that was winning in the fight. Obviously, Usyk had a lot to do with that as well. He changed his game plan and countered Fury, and that's, again, the sign of a very, very good fighter. And he says significant wins are important. There's a big difference between being a quality fighter and the best of your era fighter. Some of my picks are based on quality of work, comparing statistics. Yep, we've all got our own way of judging our top 10s, guys, but yeah, I'll put my list up in a sec, mate. I'm just waiting for everyone to have to say. Better question, who beats Usyk? Is this today, Carl? As I said, I think Fury has a chance to beat him in the rematch, but the odds are, in my opinion, that Usyk does it twice and then retires, surely. Tommy Dokes, do you think Usyk 2 best wins in AJ and Fury equal or are greater to Foreman 2 best wins, Fraser and Norton? Yeah, this is what we talk about, mate. Look, I think Foreman, I don't think is just an argument whatsoever, to be honest. I think he's won the heavyweight title a decade apart. At 40, was he 45 years of age? I think it's just not in question. I think the Fraser fights, yeah, Fraser Norton, at the time, Fraser had just come off beating Muhammad Ali. And I know that's arguable because Ali hadn't fought in 3 years, all that sort of stuff. I get that, and was a bit rusty with only a couple of soft comeback wins. But Fraser was coming off the win. Foreman beat him. Of course, he lost the title to Ali, came back, 13 years later after the Ali fight. I know he fought up to 77 and came back in 87. But I'll get to his record in a sec. But yeah, I think already I'm probably going to get a bit of feedback on one of my tips there. But anyway, I'll I'll just get to this one and I'll put my list up. Usyk, best of his era, having beaten Fury and AJ twice, says so. All right, well, I'm going to put my list up now so that you guys can get stuck into me. Hang on, one more there. I think Usyk worked him out, mate. I see him doing the same in the next fight. Usyk's recovery rate from them body shots was what champions are made of. Yeah, well, that's for sure. All right, guys, well, I'm going to put my top 10 up now. You can have a little bit of a look at it or run through it, and I'm going to go through why I had them at number 10. And as always, it's just my opinion. I have my own criteria. It mightn't be, I see Andre in there with his criteria, and that's fine. This is the Boxing Deep Dive show. I'm the host, so I'm going to put mine up, and you're more than welcome to critique it, but just be polite. All right, here we go. If I can find it here. All right, there it is there, guys. Now, just have a look at that for a second. If you're listening to this, of course, you can't see that, but I'll start at number 10, and then I'll go through my justification and why I have them where I have them before I start copying it from everyone out there. All right, so I've got Rocky Marciano at number 10, and I had him just in front of Jack Johnson. Okay, so I'm probably going to cop it for Jack Johnson, but he's probably 11 for me. And probably only because he didn't have much competition back then either, by the way, and I know that might have something to do with him, but again, you can only go by box rec records or other stuff, and it's very hard to get a real read on Jack Johnson, so I can only go by what I've seen. So 10 is Rocky Marciano. I've gone for Oleksandr Usyk, at number 9. Now, here's one that I'm sure will get some feedback. At number 8, I've gone for Mike Tyson. At number 7, I've gone for Joe Frazier. At number 6, I've gone for Evander Holyfield. At 5, I've gone for Lennox Lewis. At 4, I've gone for George Foreman. At 3, this will be a contentious one, Joe Louis. Number 2, Larry Holmes. And number 1 is Muhammad Ali. All right, so I'm going to just go through just bit by bit here, or name by name. Let's see a couple of comments already. Thanks, Carl. Nice list. No complaints there. Well, I'm sure some people's list might change, or the order might change, but that's all good. Yeah, got him 9th. Yeah, I've got Oleksandr Usyk at 9. Number 9. Yeah, I do, Tommy, and I know. Look, I know it's contentious. I do know that, but I just think I couldn't put Jack Johnson there, as I just said. I can't put him in there because we're going by what's been written over history, and it's very, very hard to just go by what has been said over there. It's a little bit like Jack Johnson. I still don't believe that his level of competition was anywhere near what's that? Bo beat Holly. Yeah, but apart from that, Riddick Bowe didn't do a hell of a lot. Didn't fight Tyson, refused to fight Lennox Lewis. He beat Evander Holyfield. I get that, but we're going by the body of work. So this is what we've got to go by. I mean, Larry Holmes beat Muhammad Ali, and whether it was later in his career or not, still beat him, didn't he? These are just the things we go by. But we've got to have a top 10. And again, I'm going by the body of work, not just one good win here or there. So let's just start. Rocky Marciano. Yeah, the Klitschko's I thought about, Damien, but they just had no one to fight, mate. There was just nobody. No, one or two were sort of half-decent contenders, but that was it. And I really felt bad about not putting the Klitschko's in there. But as I said, a little bit like the Jack Johnson argument, I understand that, and maybe a Jack Johnson, but these other heavyweights had very, very good heavyweights, if not great heavyweights. Yes, Andrew, I'll get to that in a sec, mate. Larry before Lewis. Yeah, I'll get to that. So a lot of them had great, very good, if not great. Unfortunately, some of these fighters, like the Klitschko's, had just no one to fight. So I just can't, in good grace, put them in there when they never had a legacy fight. And even if you look at it, I know it was later in their career, Klitschko fought Joshua and Fury, lost to both of those guys. So, you know what I'm saying? It's just very, very hard to... No list is ever going to be perfect. That's all I'm going to say. Let's start with Rocky Marciano. 49-0, 43 KOs. First of all, throw the record out the window. I'm not interested in the fact he was undefeated. Too many people go by, well, Rocky was undefeated. It was 49-0 blah, 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 blah. I don't go by that at all. You know, as I said, like the fact that I had a really good look at his record, by the way, and there's some pretty horrific records in the first half of his career. But on paper, it looks great. But having said that, had the 13th round knockout of Jersey Joel Walcott back in 1952, has 6 defences, beat Joe Louis, Walcott, Azar Charles, Archie Moore. Yes, they're all past the peak, but just in comparison to, again, I'm putting Jack Johnson to the side because we just didn't see enough of him. Putting him in front of Jack Dempsey because I think even though those guys were at the tail end of their careers, still all great fighters. Great fighters. Probably put Joe Louis more so to the side because he was done. But Walcott, Charles were still capable. Moore was obviously at the end, but again, you've got to look at criteria, and I've gone for Rocky Marciano at number 10 because one thing that I've always gone, someone like a Riddick Bowe, who was at the said before, why I didn't have him in there, refused to fight Lennox Lewis, put the belt in the bin, refused to fight him. The Mike Tyson thing, I know there's lots of reasons why that didn't happen. Look, the great fights with Evander Holyfield were great fights, but apart from that, I mean, this is a guy that should have been beaten by Andrew Gallotta twice, only won by disqualification twice. So Holyfield wins, fantastic, but again, the body of work, I just couldn't have Riddick Bowe in there and Jack Dempsey either. So Rocky Marciano at number 10 for me. And yes, I've gone for Oleksandr Usyk at number 9 with a little semblance of reluctance, I will say. There could have been maybe, a Dempsey or one of those types. I didn't count in someone like Liston or those types of guys or Floyd Patterson. I just don't think, again, the body of work was anywhere near enough. Liston had the 2 wins over Patterson. Okay, well, Floyd Patterson was shit scared of him. That's the only credible opponent that he beat in his career. Defended the title once, and that was the rematch with Floyd Patterson. So, yeah, it's again, you can only fit 10 into a list of about 15 to 20. But Usyk, 22-0, 14 KOs, 2 times undisputed heavyweight champion. But again, only the 6 fights at heavyweight. So, look, it was a tough one, but again, we have to pick someone. I'm just going to bring myself. I'll leave that on the screen. All right, let's go to Mike Tyson. This is probably one of the most contentious ones, but I'll justify that in a sec. 50 wins, 6 losses, 44 knockouts. The youngest ever heavyweight champion at 20 years of age. Now, have a think about what you were doing at 20, but more importantly, what a lot of these other fighters are doing at 20 years of age. Not much. Maybe just turning pro, probably still amateurs. If they were pros, very, very early in their career. Mike Tyson was undisputed heavyweight champ. Well, sorry, not undisputed at that stage, but won his first version of the title against Berbick and then became undisputed within 12 months. Unbelievable effort. As I said, youngest ever heavyweight champion. Beat the likes of the best challengers of his career, of his generation. Berbick, Pinklin Thomas, Tony Tucker, Tyrell Biggs, Tony Tubbs, Larry Holmes, Michael Spinks, Frank Bruno twice. Carl the Truth Williams was another good fighter back in the day. Razor Ruddock, Bruce Seldon, former champion. The list sort of goes on. 9 defences. So I know we probably go a lot by his later career, but until he got put into jail, he was an absolute beast and just unstoppable. So up until the Buster Douglas fight, and even to an extent after that fight when he came back, when he went through the likes of Seldon and Alex Stewart and these types of guys, he was just demolishing everyone. And then, of course, ran into Holyfield. And that's probably the last time we saw a prime Mike Tyson. But on that alone, that body of work, for me, easily in the top 10. And I've got him at number 8. And he could have possibly been even 1 or 2 higher. So there you see Joe Fraser, 32-4-1, 27 KOs, Olympic gold medalist. Not that that should count too much. Won the title in 1970, the vacant title that is. Of course, Muhammad Ali was stripped with a 4th round stoppage of Jimmy Ellis. Had the 4 defences. He had wins against the likes of Buster Mathis, Oscar Bonavena, Jerry Quarry a couple of times, Jimmy Ellis, Bob Foster, Joe Bugner, and of course that unbelievable win over Muhammad Ali. So just on that, I've got him at number 7. Number 6, Evander Holyfield, 44-10-2, 29 knockouts, 4-time heavyweight champion, if that makes sense. Won with a 3rd round knockout of Douglas, of course, for the Undisputed. The rematch against Bowe in 93, beat Mike Tyson 96 for the WBA, and then Mora, I think he added the IBF to that. So technically 3, if not 4, if you want to add that second belt. Ruiz was the other one for the WBA vacant title as well. That was in 2000. and beat the likes of, again, Pinklin Thomas, Michael Dotes, Alex Stewart, Buster Douglas, George Foreman, Bert Cooper, Larry Holmes, had the 3 fights with Bo, Ray Mercer, Mike Tyson, of course, Mora twice, Ruiz 3 times. I mean, this guy is one of the greats, is Holyfield. So I'll get to your... So Carl says, yep, Bo ducked at Linux like a bitch. Yep. Tyson's best win. Old Larry. Nah, mate. Nah. I don't subscribe to that. I think, yep, Burbick is probably one. I mean, he was the weakest of the champions, but Pinklin Thomas was coming. He was the heir apparent to Holmes. Tony Tucker, very formidable IBF champion at the time. Tyrell Biggs, Olympic gold medalist, undefeated as a pro. Tony Tubbs, former world champ. Larry Holmes, of course. And Larry Holmes ended up fighting for the heavyweight title, I think, twice after that. Andrew. So you got to give him some credit there. Michael Spinks at the time, that was a 50-50 fight. A lot of people thought Spinks would win that. Bruno was a bit of a killer back then, obviously limited. Carl Williams, probably so-so. Razor Ruddock was almost like in a George Foreman when he was around. Tyson did the job on him a couple of times. So, no, I don't think so, Andrew, not with that one, mate. So, where did you have Jack Dempsey? I probably had him at probably 12 or 13, Ryan. I just didn't think his, again, body of work measured up to these other guys. Who wins at the peak, Fury or Usyk? I think, well, I still think Usyk could get the job done there, Andrew. I have Mike Tyson right around 7 or 8 as well. My favourite heavyweight of all time is not even in my top 10. That's the case because the body of work, I'm talking about Fraser, which have been extraordinary body of work, top 15 in my opinion. But just missed the 10. Yep, that's cool. Yeah, this is an interesting one. Ken Norton arguably beat Ali 2 out of the 3. Ken beat Holmes, and he also won against Jimmy Young. Unfortunately, I suppose you got to look at the counter argument. He got absolutely demolished by George Foreman, and obviously didn't get the win over Holmes, but in the end, but contentious as well. So look, he's probably, I suppose, even though did he actually have the WBC? The Holmes fight wasn't for the vacant belt, I think it was for the full belt. He might have won the vacant title, but he's just one of those fighters, Tommy, that I suppose you could almost have him as what's the top 10 sort of almost also rans of all time, because he is definitely up there, isn't he? Yeah, it depends on how high you rate AJ and Fury. Well, not many people, well, I suppose I was going to say not many people gave him a chance against Tyson Fury. This is Usyk we're talking about. But look, Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, the 2 biggest names of their time, obviously both heavyweight champions. It's, again, just how you view them, Tommy. That's not a bad point. Let's keep going there, guys. Lennox Lewis at number 5, 41-2-1, 32 KOs. Had the win over Klitschko, obviously Mike Tyson, David Tua, Holyfield twice. Oh, the draw was one, of course. Ray Mercer, Tommy Morrison, Frank Bruno, Tony Tucker, Razor Ruddock, Tyrell Biggs. Enough said there with Lennox Lewis. Definitely for me, number 5. George Foreman. Look, I wouldn't have said by his first reign as champion he would be up there. But that's your call, Andrew. That's cool. Good, mate. Yep. Norton had problems with power guys like Foreman, Cooney, and Shavers. He did. But George Foreman, 76-5, 68 KOs. In his first career, he was 45-2 with 42 KOs. His second career, how's this? Comes back at was he late 30s? 31-3, 26 KOs. Of course, won the title with that second round destruction of Fraser in 74. The 10th round knockout of Mora in 94, and the oldest heavyweight champion in history. Then we go to Joe Lewis, 66-3, 52 KOs, 25 consecutive defenses. But let's not forget the quote-unquote bum of the month tour that he went on. Look at some of the fighters in that reign. This is probably why I've gone for Larry in front of him, by the way. 27-1 with 23 KOs in world title fights. But as I said, he did have that bum of the month club tour. And again, probably just because he had no one to really fight around that time. But was knocked out by Max Schmeling. I know he did get the win in the rematch, but apart from that, I know there was Charles and Walcott and those types of guys, but again, I just think Larry's resume just outshone Joe Lewis a little bit. And I just think someone like Mike Altamura, my old mate, who'd be having a heart attack about now because he had Joe Lewis at number 1. So just on Larry Holmes, 69-6, 44 KOs. Won the WBC belt in 78, held until 83, then held the IBF belt for 2 years, 83 to 85. 16 defenses of that WBC belt, 3 defenses of the IBF belt. Now, I just think he cleaned out the entire division at that time. I'm talking Cooney, Witherspoon, Ronaldo Snipes, Ernie Shavers, Bone Crusher Smith, Carl the Truth Williams, David Bay. I'm just rattling off a few names here, but he fought and beat absolutely everyone there was to beat. Mike Weaver, Trevor Berbick, all these guys, beat them all. So for me, Larry Holmes, so underrated. I've got him at number 2. I'll just finish this list, guys, and I'll go to your list. So if you haven't put him in there, put him in now. We'll have a look at him. And then, of course, Muhammad Ali, 50 slash Cassius Clay, 56-5, 37 KOs. Of course, Olympic gold medalist, 3-time heavyweight champion, all lineal titles, by the way, not versions of the belt. They're all the lineal heavyweight title. 64, 74, and 78. 19 successful defenses, 9 in his first reign, 10 in his second reign. Didn't defend it in his last reign. 22-3 in world title fights. 11-0 in rematches, which is a great statistic to have. 11-3 against Hall of Fame inductees, and just some of the names. I mean, I know he lost to Holmes, but he beat Foreman, Fraser, Norton, Bob Foster, Archie Moore, Floyd Patterson, Sonny Liston, of course, and you name it, he's beaten them back in the day. So that's my list there. So just quickly, Marciano at 10, Usyk at 9, Tyson at 8, Fraser at 7, Holyfield at 6, Lewis at 5, Foreman at 4, Lewis at 3, Holmes 2, Ali 1. Now, I am prepared to accept a little bit of criticism maybe for the Usyk selection, but again, you've got to have a list, don't you? So let's go through some comments there. Tyson, hang on, I'll just move my screen there. Tyson lost every time someone stood up to him. I know that hang on, I'll just go back to me there. Sorry, guys. I've still got the list up there. Hang on. I'll just get myself back on screen. Sorry about that. There I am. I'm alive. All right. Tyson lost every time someone stood up to him. Look, I will make an argument against that, Andrew. I know that is the common argument from a lot of people out there, and I will not argue that he's definitely the classic bully. But there were some guys that stood up to him, and they all just come off second best. I think guys like, Berbick tried to stand up to him, and he got KO'd. I think Pinklin Thomas tried, Tony Tucker tried, Terrell Biggs tried, Larry tried. I think a lot of people actually stood up to him. The one that obviously succeeded and broke the mold forever was Buster Douglas, but I don't sort of subscribe to that. Every time someone stood up to him, he folded. I think if you look through his resume, there are a lot of people that actually went after him. Even Peter McNeely went after him. Not that Peter McNeely was anywhere near resembling a world-class fighter, but I just don't subscribe to that, mate. I think there were a lot that did try and stand up to him and come off second best. So, but yeah, make no mistake, Buster Douglas fought a great fight. Definitely stood up to him and out fought Tyson. I thought that was just one of the best performances I've ever seen, ever. Lennox Lewis, but again, Tyson was finished then. So Holyfield's probably the best example I've seen as well of breaking down the bully. He just stood, and I think Holyfield beats Tyson at any stage of his career. Not quite sure Lennox Lewis does. That's arguable. I don't think Buster Douglas does, but I think Holyfield, no matter what version of Mike Tyson came to the table, I think Holyfield just had that steel and the metal and the style and the hardness to break Tyson down no matter what era. But yeah, I think he would have been a chance against Lewis in his prime. Not that we've probably seen all his prime, but yeah, as I said, mate, I understand what you're saying, but I don't subscribe to that. No. Tommy, I think we've missed out on the best form with him retiring from 77 to 87. Again, a great point. And still look at all he accomplished. Yeah, and that's why I've got him in there, Tommy. Again, I wouldn't have had him in the top 10 based on his first career, but the second career combined with the first, of course, what a body of work this guy had. And just, it's almost like the yin and yang, wasn't it? The first career to the second career. The first one, he was just that formidable beast of a guy, just an absolute, just a power puncher. And then the second one, just Mr. Nice Guy, wasn't he? Could still get you out of there, obviously, but just the complete opposite of what he was in that first career. All right, Andy, what do you got there, mate? My list remains Lewis at 1, Ali at 2, Holmes at 3, Foreman at 4, Lewis at 5, Holyfield at 6. Well, I think that was pretty similar to mine, wasn't it? Of course, I had Ali, Holmes, Lewis, but I think apart from that, we had the same there, Andy. So 60s, Ali, Invincible. And wasn't it just a shame, Andrew, that we missed out on seeing the peak of Muhammad Ali, just like we missed out seeing the peak of Mike Tyson and George Foreman. So 3 of those. Imagine what those guys could have accomplished. So Ali, Foreman, Tyson. We've never seen the absolute best of those guys, and they're still in the top 10, in my opinion. So, yeah, and you're right, Andy. This is a very good point. 7, 8, 9, and 10 are a toss-up. You could add a lot of different fighters. You could throw in there, like I said, the Jack Johnson, Jack Dempsey, a Gene Tunney, maybe. So you could have thrown them in the mix as well. But, all right, Andre, who you got there, mate? So he's got Ali at 1, Lewis at 2, Langford at 3. You're going to stick by Sam Langford. You're going to put that stake in the ground, and that's cool, Andre. Jack Johnson 4, Larry Holmes 5, Harry Wills 6, George Foreman 7, Lennox Lewis 8, Joe Jeanette 9, Evander Holyfield top 10. Well, one thing I'm going to say, Andre, you know your boxing. I'm not going to say I agree with your list, but you obviously know your boxing, because I'm sure if you had to, you could justify every single one of those picks in there. So good stuff, mate. Lennox Lewis sorted him out. Who was that? Carl, sorry, I missed that one. Holyfield was nice to watch. He was brilliant to watch. The absolute fighter's fighter, in my opinion. Carl is to love watching him fight. And to look at any young fighter about how to tackle a bully or someone that's, intimidating. Look at his fight against Mike Tyson the first time. You talk about breaking down that bully. Well, that is the best example I think I've ever seen. Maybe Cassius Clay against Sonny Liston. But I don't think Sonny Liston was anywhere near what Mike Tyson was. So, yeah, Andrew, yep, 87, 88 with Tyson. He was a phenom. He was, mate. And this is what I sort of say to the people. Like, again, we didn't see the best of him, but you got to remember it, 1988 when he beat Spinks, that was probably the last time we saw, I won't even say it was peak Tyson. That was just a glimpse of what he could have become. Because in 88, he would have been, 20, not even 22 years old. And it just wiped out Michael Spinks in 90 seconds, undisputed champion. And then he parted ways with Kevin Rooney after that. Didn't fight for about 8 or 9 months after that. And then fought Frank Bruno and looked nothing like he had beforehand against Spinks and Holmes and Tubbs and Biggs and these types of guys in the lead up to the fight. He looked slow. He didn't look fit. He really battled in that fight. I thought the next fight after that, he looked okay against Carl the Truth Williams, although it only lasted a round. But physically, I thought he looked a lot better. And then after that, the wheels fell off because Buster Douglas got hold of him and it just wasn't the same. I thought he regrouped a little bit from 91 to 92, 3, whatever it was, until he went to prison. And that for me, that was Mike Tyson done. That was, I just put a line through his career right there because he was never the same after that. Because when he came out of prison, was it the prison? The first time anyway, before he fought McNeely, I thought it was, before that fight. Like he was on a path of destruction again. After the Douglas fight, he came back and there was Henry Tillman, Alex Stewart. I think Selden was in there as well. There's a lot in there, but he looked like he was back to his best and then went to prison, came back, got a little bit back, and then Holyfield, of course, ruined him forever after that. All right, Buzz Light Beer. Usyk undisputed in heavyweight and cruiserweight. Only 22 fights, never fought a major fight in his own country, fought and won in Russia. True greatness. Well, there's another underlying reason why maybe you should give him a bit of a push into the top 10. Buzz, that's an excellent point. The fact is, not just fighting in Las Vegas every fight or New York or wherever it might be, or Saudi Arabia these days, fighting in everyone's hometown. Just amazing. Carl says not only that, he was always the B-side, taking 30% deals for both AJ and Fury. Greatness personified. Great point there as well. Carl, what's that, Andre? I respect all this because it's all a matter of criteria or sub-criteria. If the most important one, body of work, is there to count before everything else, as it should, nothing but respect. I'd love for you to come on here at some stage, Andre, and I'll get Mike Altamura on, because Mike Altamura, you probably don't know who he is. I get him on occasionally. He's like a encyclopedia of boxing. He would know all those fighters you're talking about. He would probably know their records backwards, frontwards, and sidewards, and he would probably agree with what you're saying there, Andre. We might do that at some stage if we do another sort of top 10, but I think you'd like Mike Altamura, Andre, because he's right up your alley with his way of thinking. All right, Andrew, underestimating Liston, sledgehammer jab, huge right hand, just run into the bully tamer. He did, Andrew, but we're going on hypotheticals here. He had two great wins, well, not even great, two good wins over Floyd Patterson, who, as they say, looked like a scared little rabbit. Apart from that, I don't think had any legitimate wins outside those two fights. Now, he quite possibly would have had a Tyson-esque type of career if he could stay on the straight and narrow. Maybe if he won the title when he was a little bit younger. Maybe if Ali hadn't been around, or Clay back then, maybe. But we can only go by, as Andre puts so eloquently, the body of work. And the facts are, Liston might have had a good jab or a great jab, might have been intimidating, might have been able to punch like a sledgehammer. But the facts of the matter are, he had the two wins over Floyd Patterson, and that is it. So we can only go by that. We can't go by what ifs. And unfortunately, we just never saw the best of Sonny Liston. All right, Andy. If I had to pick one, the Brown Bomber, Joe Louis probably number one. Yep. Ali number two. Ali, 21 years active, 25 title fights compared to Lewis, 66, 17 years active. I'm with Mike Altamura. Yep. Yeah, Andre, we'll get him on at some stage. If you haven't seen Andre, I'll just go back through our catalogue on our YouTube channel here, and I think the last time I had him on, it was probably a few months ago now, but I used to get him on nearly every week, but he's had a few things going on. He's been all over the place and really busy. He's a manager and agent and all that sort of stuff as well. I think we did a special or a talking point of how do the records compare of the modern day to, probably right up your alley as well, to yesteryear. How do we rank the two? Because obviously these days are completely different. We only have about a third of the fights that they used to in yesteryear or back in the day. And to have Mike on there explaining that and the way he puts it, yeah, I'll see. I'm not sure if I can get the link, how it all works. I'll see if I can do it. But in the meantime, look, excuse me, look at our YouTube channel, mate, because it's there somewhere. I'll see if I can just quickly find it as we go. I don't want to sort of take up too much time. If I can quickly find it, I'll get it going. If not, I'll get it another time. All right, I'll see if I can get the link. Geez, it was a while ago. When was it? Might have been a bit longer than I thought. That's a talking point there. All right, how do records of different eras? Oh, hang on, I better take that down there. All right, I'm going to put the link in if I can. Let's see. How do records of different eras compare? All right, let's see if I can put it in there. Did that come up? I'm not sure it did. All right, I'm not sure that... yes, there it is. All right, so there's a link there. How do the records of different eras compare? All right. Liston versus Williams. Yeah, I know, but where does Williams fall in the scheme of things? You know, a lot of fighters have great victories. Again, that body of work. I just don't see Liston, his body work coming anywhere near any of those other guys. Maybe it was a top 15, maybe. You would definitely have to put Johnson, Dempsey, and Williams. Williams. Looking at your last time there, and Liston in there. Maybe a couple of Riddick Bowe in there. Maybe Klitschko's. Maybe we need to do a top 20. But also Zora Foley, Eddie Marchant. Yeah, but I mean, in the scheme of things, Andrew, where do they sort of rate? Are they a Hergovich? Are they a Daniel Dubois type again? Derek Chisora type? I don't know. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I know who those guys are. But Ali beat those guys pretty easy as well, especially Zora Foley. So anyway, look, it's just an opinion. All right, Carl, what do you got there, mate? Ali 1, Holmes 2, Lewis 3, Lewis 4. This is Lennox Lewis. Foreman 5, Holyfield 6. So I think you had it the same as me apart from Lewis and Foreman. I think I had Foreman at 4, Lewis at 5. So there you go. So there, yeah, sorry, no worries, Andre. So check that out, mate, and you'll see what I'm talking about. He knows his stuff, does Mike Altamura. All right. What else have we got there, guys? Am I being a bit too lenient? Is that the word for Usyk? A bit generous to Oleksandr Usyk by putting him at number was he number 9, I think? Fraser was 7. Okay, yep. I had Fraser 7 as well there, Carl. Am I being a bit generous by putting him in at the top 10, let alone number 9, let alone in the top 10 in general? I know it's contentious, and I must admit, when I sat down to do it, I thought, how could you have Usyk in there in the top 10 when you got all these great fighters? But just going through his record, the fighters he's beaten, again, that body of work, I must admit too, when you look at fighters like the Dempseys and Marcianos and the Johnsons and all these great heavyweights from yesteryear, because their aura sort of grows over the years, and the legends sort of grow, and not just boxing, it's the same in football and horse racing and baseball and basketball, all different sports. I would be horrified, just sitting down thinking, how could Oleksandr Usyk be in front of Jack Dempsey? Jack Dempsey is a legend and an icon of the sport, but you've just got to go by their records. And I just think Usyk, again, has that better body of work. Carl says, I'm big on Usyk. Thanks, Carl. I think we're very, very similar in our list. Yep, Andrew. Too generous. Yeah, all good, mate. All good. I am being generous. Yep. And gold medals. Yeah. Look, again, Andrew, and I totally understand where you're coming from, mate. And Andre obviously thinks differently as well. It just comes down to how you rate or your criteria for how you rate fighters. Now, a lot of people have Rocky Marciano in the top 2 or 3. I just don't get it. And their argument is, well, he's 49-0. He's 49-0, and that's the criteria. Well, no, it's not the criteria. I mean, I've had arguments in the past about someone like Julio Cesar Chavez. I would have him in the top 10 all-time fighters of all time. But I get a lot of people say, oh, he fought taxi drivers and this and that. But he got, what did he get to? Was it 87-0? Now, he could have retired then and probably had claimed to be the greatest fighter ever at 87-0. But you know what? He kept fighting and he lost a few fights, especially later in his career. Does that diminish him? No way. No way at all. I think we've got to get past the whole record thing. Fighters struggle to get past it, and I think sometimes supporters or fans struggle to get past it as well. I think we almost need to take the UFC mentality where you're judged over your legacy and everything, not just your pure record. And let's face it, most UFC fighters lose multiple fights, and some of them are regarded as the best, pound for pound fighters of all time. I know UFC is a different sport. I'm certainly not going to start defending UFC against boxing because I'm a boxing man. But I just think we have to get past that. Well, he was this record and he was that record. It means nothing. It means nothing if your opponent's on there don't measure up. So, I mean, Larry Holmes almost got the 48. Oh, he was 48. No, almost got the 49-0. And I think his resume was 3 times as good as what Rocky was. So does the fact he lost that one fight put him behind Marciano? I don't think so. All right, Andre, per example, sometimes people come to me saying that there are no footage of Harry Greb. Well, if you like Harry Greb, Andre, you're going to love Mike Altamura because he had him in, I think, the top 5 of all-time fighters, pound for pound, all divisions. So you like him. And was horrified that I didn't have him in mind. There are no footage of Harry Greb. Thus, how can I rate him in the way I do? I usually reply, show me on video the greatness of Alexander the Great. Good point, Andre. But 100% agree with you there. But still going by, I mean, you look at someone like a Jack Johnson, say, not a lot of footage of him, just a few grainy highlight reels, whatever it was. But looking at these, like if you look at his record online, if you can sort of find it and work your way through it, a lot of question marks and asterisks beside the guys he fought. We just have no idea, even if it is just based on your resume on paper. You don't really have I don't think, the tools to or the ability to see his record as it should have been. So I get what you're saying there. But again, even based on looking at it on paper rather than footage, I still think you'd struggle to get a clear definition of how Jack Johnson was back in the day, because we're just relying on a lot of records that just weren't kept properly. So, and maybe the Jack Dempseys of the world were the same. I'm not quite sure how good record keeping was back in the 20s and 30s, but it's just a little bit hard when you're relying just on written information. Maybe it's better to lose one fight early on. Yeah, well, they all lose at some stage, don't they? Larry said Lennox never impressed him. Yeah, I must admit, I wasn't overly impressed myself with Lennox, but at the end of the day, look at his record. Beat everyone. But I know he got knocked out twice, but avenged those losses. The Oliver McCall one, I know he had a meltdown, but the Rahman fight definitely put that one to bed, didn't he? So, and I think a lot of the great champions have lost maybe a fight or two that they maybe weren't expected to win. But yeah, I must admit, Hanoi Tripper there, I wasn't overly impressed with Lennox either. But again, on paper and the fighters he fought, he still beat all those guys. So you have to put him in that top 5. It's a matter of opinion at the end of the day, 100%, Carl. And this is the way it should be. Put your points out there, justify them, state your case, and that's cool. Just, as I said, just keep it polite. All right. Hanoi missed the start. Do you think Usyk does well against the 90s roster? Is this the 90s heavyweights? So who was the 90s? So we had Tyson, Lewis, Holyfield. Who else? Bo, would you put in there as well? They're probably the big. Am I missing someone? The big 4? Oh, Mora, Foreman. Well, there's another really good example there. So to go through them, Hanoi, does he beat Lennox Lewis? I would think no. Does he beat Mike Tyson? I would think no. Would he have a good chance just because he's tough and hard? And as someone said before, Tyson's a bully and never beat anyone that stood up to him. I'm going to say no. Holyfield, no. Geez, my list is not looking too good at the moment, although all those fighters I had above Usyk, so that's okay. Who else? I think he beats Mora. I think he beats the 45-year-old version of Foreman too, by the way. So are they the only ones? Let me know if I'm missing someone anyway. But yeah, good call there, Hanoi Tripper. We're all guilty of overrating the modern fighter. Joshua and Fury, both questionable weakness. Yeah, and you're right, Andrew. Looking at both of them now, you would think, I mean, Joshua looked like he was just a statue against Fury, didn't he? Against Usyk. Looked very limited. And he suddenly looks great again, but look at the level of competition he's fought. I'd still back Usyk to beat him 10 times out of 10. And Fury, I actually thought Fury fought really well on the weekend. I really do. I just think Usyk fought better and had a better game plan, showed a bit more heart, a bit more strategy. And I just don't think Tyson Fury fought a very smart fight after the 6th round. But we will know for sure in October or November, whenever it's going to be, when they go for it again. But you're right, Andrew. We do tend to overrate fighters sometimes, and when they get beat easily, he goes, "Yeah, geez, what was I sort of thinking there?" Or "I told you so." It's amazing how suddenly Mike Tyson was just indestructible, unbeatable, and then once Buster Douglas beat him, the whole perception of him changed. Same as Joe Fraser back in the day. Not that I was around then. I was probably just being born or a year. Actually, I think I was born the year that fight happened, 73. So, all right, Andy. Nah, Usyk has a place in top 10 in your opinion. Outside 5, but in 10. Yep, what did I have him number 9? I had Vlad at 10 at one stage before because of his long reign defending. Yeah, the only reason I didn't put him in there, Andy, is again, and it wasn't his fault. It was just a shocking error, probably the worst error in heavyweight history. And I'm glad it's well and truly over. Not that we've come out the other side yet, but having Usyk, Fury, Joshua, and to some extent Wilder, not to say he's a great or even a good fighter, but it's the mystique of having Deontay Wilder in the division. I think it's great for it. Let's see if he can get back on track, of course. But I think in that way, and Klitschko's in there as well, it hasn't been a bad error. But Usyk has come out as the number 1. Holyfield versus Usyk would be a nice fantasy fight. Yeah, I got requested or had a request for that the other day, Carl. So we might have to do that at some stage. Some of the best dream fights. I normally just do one, but we might actually put in 2 or 3 and maybe do a quick wrap up of them and do 2 or 3 in one night. What's that? What are you saying there, Hanoi? Hang on. You've got McCall. Yeah, that's who beat him. Tua didn't beat him. Lennox is one man who definitely could have competed in every era. Yeah, and I think Larry Holmes is the same. Andy, just the style-wise, I think. And you would think, obviously, Ali and Lewis. And the only thing I will say with the Ali-Lewis argument as well is that I just think if you look at very similar careers and records and all that sort of stuff, I suppose at some stage it's just got to come down to pure ability and who would probably win if they fought. I just think Muhammad Ali was just one of the most gifted fighters if not the most gifted fighters of all time. And I'm talking about the Ali after, maybe the mid-70s when he tended to lay on the ropes a lot, got very lazy, put on a bit of weight, and relied on his jab and his toughness to get through, and his overall ability. You look at the Ali of the 60s, like someone said before, and in the early 70s, the way he moved, his hand speed, he had good power as well. Just a brilliant fighter. So I'm looking at that. I think if a peak Ali, so late 60s, early 70s, fought a prime Lewis, I think Ali wins hands down. I just think he boxes rings around Joe Lewis. And Joe Lewis can punch. He might have even put Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay down at some stage. I just don't think he would have had what it took to get Ali/Clay out of there. And I just think the ability of Ali/Clay was just second to none, and that's again why I've got him at number one. I'm missing it here. Hanoi, what are you saying here, mate? You've got Bruno and Gallotta. Are these the fighters that Lewis beat? He's beaten all. I'm thinking this is what you're saying there. David Toole was a weapon. Unfortunately, not to get that fight with Mike. What a fight that would have been. There is talk there they might even be going to do a fight after this next one. So, geez. I think David Toole would have been a great chance to beat Mike Tyson. Just purely by styles. I mean, very, very similar styles, very same dimension. I just think, was Toure, I think he was a bit bigger than Tyson, but exactly the same style. I think he hit harder than Tyson. And talking about Mike being the ultimate bully, I mean, David Toole was probably even worse than that. The difference was, of course, he did measure up sometimes. He just had that one-punch knockout power. I mean, who can forget the fights with Ruiz and a few of these other guys? Just one-punch knockouts. Just amazing. That would have been a great fight. Wouldn't have lasted long, but it would have been great. Yeah, Carl, Kid Dynamite was an exciting machine. I used to love it. He just had that aura about him, didn't he? In the from 86 to 89, wow, what a fighter. Jimmy Young is underrated. He beat Foreman, beat Ron Lyle twice, had a draw with Shavers, and lost a split decision to Norton. I'm liking maybe doing an episode on the also ranks, the underrated fighters of the time, Tommy, because I'm with you there. Jimmy Young, especially Norton, Shavers, even guys like Witherspoon. I know Witherspoon won the version of the title a couple of times. Those types of guys, we might do an episode on who are the most underrated heavyweights of all time. I reckon those guys would be in there. I'm definitely putting Jimmy Young, Ken Norton, Tim Witherspoon. Just trying to think of some of the others. But give me some suggestions as well. The most underrated heavyweights of all time. Joe Frazier's style was impressive. I used to love smoking Joe. Here's another one I would have given a really good chance to beat Mike Tyson. Just by the work rate. I think Mike would have struggled to hit him cleanly because of the way Joe fought, side to side, weaving around, and just very, very hard to hit. I think Mike would have struggled. And the work rate from Joe Frazier, I think, would have been a real problem for Tyson as well. And the constant bobbing and weaving, hooking to the head, hooking to the body, getting inside, roughing it up, not really giving Mike Tyson a chance to really get off his shots. That would have been a great fight as well. I think Tyson would have beaten Foreman by just, again, that style, getting underneath of George's long arms. And I'm not sure whether George would have been fast enough to actually catch a peak Mike Tyson. But again, it's just great to have these conversations, isn't it? We might have to have an episode of put some dream fights in there. You guys decide. I'll come with nothing. I'll rely on you guys to come up with a dream fight, and we'll have maybe 10 minutes to discuss each fight. And we'll just put them out there and go for an hour or so and have 10 minutes to discuss who we think wins a dream fight. Maybe we should do that every Wednesday. Because I really like the input from you guys. It's not much fun getting on here and doing a video and just posting it to YouTube. It's great to have the interaction. And whether I agree or not, or you agree with me or not, it's just great to have the conversation. Andy Ruiz, whose focus could be a handful for Usyk. Yeah, that's not a bad point, Hanoi. I don't mind that one. It's all about the styles, isn't it? But what's Ruiz doing? Fair income. The other one could even be a Deontay Wilder. As limited as he is, style-wise, being so big and his distance and his reach, Usyk might not be able to get to him. I think if he does, he obviously lands some good shots. But all it takes is if Wilder just stood there with that left arm out, just lining him up and just trying to land that right hand over and over, You just don't know. This is what's great about boxing. All right, Andy. Vlad Klitschko was the era after Lennox and before Fury. Before the loss, might not have been toughest era, but was still Vlad's long reign. Yeah, and look, there's others like Marciano, Andy, I think it was. Similar thing. Didn't have Jack Johnson, of course. Dempsey didn't have a lot to beat in their generation, so it's hard to really rate them. Maybe Klitschko's the same, and you might be right. It might be stiff, but again, I think Usyk beats Klitschko. Both Klitschkos. Just style wise, I think Usyk would match up very well against those guys. All right, Buzz Lightyear. I think ring IQ and training methods are far different today than in the past. Ukraine seem to have unique methods. Loma and Usyk, ring IQ 100%. This is why, again, it comes back to the amateurs, Buzz. A lot of people don't rate the amateur scene. I can 100% tell you that's where it starts. I've seen these guys firsthand, not just training and before fights. I've fought some of these guys, Russians, Ukrainians, Kazakhstan. These guys are from when they're kids, young kids, are put into these schools, and that's what they do. They go to school and then they train. When they finish school, they don't work, they train. That's their job. And it's just a whole different way of life over there, and they set the standards at a young age in the amateurs, which then carries over to the pros. You got to remember, these guys have 200, 300, 400 fights. And as I said, that they're always training, always getting coached, always learning. Very hard to compete with that. And you just got to wonder how heavyweight history may have changed if these Eastern Bloc countries would have been able to fight in the professionals 30, 40, 50 years ago. A classic example of that, of course, is a great Cuban, Felix Savon, Teofimo Stevenson. Never fought in the pros, multiple Olympic gold medal winning heavyweights. They never had a chance to fight pro. These days they are. And look at the dominance we have these days, not just Ukraine, but Russia as well, Kazakhstan as well. So you just got to wonder how boxing history might have been changed if those countries might have been able to compete. Because I fought in the amateurs. I fought Belarus, I fought Russian, I fought Ukrainian, I fought Kazakhstan. And holy shit, no matter what level they were at, they could all fight, and they were so well drilled and well schooled, and probably had 200 fights each, 300. Just amazing. So, and I know that, as I said, I think transcends into the pros, which is why they have such a great boxing IQ. So well coached from a young age. And when you think about it too, most of them still fight like amateurs, just as pros. They just learn to fight like amateurs for longer, if that makes sense. Because I think Loma still 100% fights like an amateur. In and out, round to left, round to right, pop, pop, pop. Not really stressed about the power, but scoring. And it's almost impossible to catch. So I think that's why they're so successful. All right. Those 90s heavyweight guys against Usyk, I meant. Yep. Did I cover that? I think I did. Yeah, Tua. Destroyed poor old Shane Cameron. It's funny to look at these. That was an all Kiwi fight, of course. I had to laugh, Carl. I shouldn't, because poor old Shane Cameron got knocked out big time. But he talked a good fight before it, didn't he, Carl? If you look on YouTube with Shane Cameron on there, he was pretty confident he would win. Jeez. They should make a YouTube channel about when trash talking goes wrong. Jeez, he got knocked out bad. Lewis had more fights, more wins, less losses, high KOs, and less years active than Ali, though. Yeah, that's cool. Yep, that's fine. Ray Mercer was a tough SOB. Probably do well today. Yeah, I really liked Ray Mercer. I just think, we loved the win over Tommy Morrison, of course, but I still remember Larry made him look a bit silly, didn't he, Larry Holmes? I think he underestimated Larry, to be honest. But, yeah, I was a big fan of Ray Mercer too. Of course, Olympic gold medalist in the 88 Olympics in Seoul. Yep, Carl Tua went the distance with Lennox. Great effort by him at the time. He just struggled, didn't he, with the size of Lennox Lewis, the height and reach and everything else as well. All right. Jimmy Young fought Ali pretty well, if you remember. This is not only a problem with Usyk, is the length of his resume, but I do believe he can absolutely compete with those guys. Yep. Foreman would have killed Mike. Not so sure about that, Andrew, but hey, that's your decision, your opinion. Tony Tucker and Mitch Green took Mike Tyson to decisions. Yeah, but the only thing I'll say to that, Hanoi, and you could probably put James Quick Tillis in that basket as well, none of them turned up to fight. None of them even tried to win. So that's the difference. They took him the distance. Bone Crusher Smith as well. If you remember back to that Bone Crusher Smith and Tyson fight, that was being billed as, the irresistible force versus the immovable object. This was going to be one of the most explosive heavyweight fights of all time. It probably ended up being the least exciting heavyweight title fight of all time. Bone Crusher, who was with that name, of course, loved to come and punch. A bit, not overly skilled, but a big puncher. And literally ran from Tyson the whole way. Tony Tucker, I expected so much more of Tony Tucker. I thought he would have been a good chance to beat Mike Tyson. And if you remember, he beat Buster Douglas in the fight before that. He stopped him in the 10th round. I thought he'd give Tyson a good fight. Did not even turn up. And Mitch Green, for all his toughness and his street cred and all the rest of it, he didn't try and win either. He was in survival mode. So that's probably the only difference I'd have in that there, mate. But we also have to take into account 12 rounds, 15 rounds. Excellent call. That's one thing I didn't even bring up, Tommy. Excellent stuff, mate. Yep. And that is what they used to call the championship rounds. Because it used to go, I don't think there were even 12 rounds at all, was there, Hanoi? I think it just went from 10 to 15 from memory. So they were the championship rounds, 11 to 15 were the rounds. So, yeah, and that's where Ali won a lot of his fights by the heart. And you got to wonder, I will admit, someone like a Mike Tyson, how would he have gone in a 15-round fight with those types of guys who might have taken him out to deep waters and maybe, as I say, drown him? That's probably what I would make. Oh, look, I would probably give Lennox Lewis, if it was a 15-round fight against Mike Tyson, I would back Lennox Lewis. I would think he'd be able to hang with Tyson for 10 or 11 rounds and then really put the foot down and maybe even stop him in the later rounds. It's amazing how much of a different spin that puts on fights when you make them 15 instead of 12 rounds. Excellent point there, Tommy. Andre, a very, very underrated heavyweight is Jim Jeffries. Yeah, didn't he won the title though, didn't he, Andre? A few fights, but the level of opposition is of amazing level. I'm pretty sure he won the title at some stage, didn't he? Top 30, in my opinion. Geez, how far can we go, Andre? Jeffrey's very big man for his era. Yep. I like that kind of school. There's one in Maribyrnong that focuses heaps on sport. Yeah, just a pure boxing academy / school. Just to quickly change tact here. So I was just today, where I live in the Macedon Ranges in Victoria, school in Kyneton, which is about 25 minutes from where I live. I went there today. There's a boxing gym. He contacted me to go and have a look. It's a boxing gym at the high school. Now, I've never seen that ever here in Australia. Boxing at a high school. It's a gym. It's all set up. It's got a ring and bags. In the lunch breaks and recess, they all get down there and they do boxing. Now, in this day and age of political correctness and everything else, I was staggered when he said, come and have a look and see what I'm doing at school. Because as I've said, I would have thought, no way in this day and age I would let boxing be at a high school, because they've, in the minds of most of these do-gooders these days, they cannot get their head around the fact that it's more beneficial to do boxing at school than not. I think they just look at it as being barbaric and people getting hurt, and it's not politically correct these days and everything else. But they're looking at these kids today. I know we're getting way off topic here. I don't know how we got away from Oleksandr Usyk in the heavyweight divisions to me going to a school in Kyneton today. But anyway, but to see these kids in there, disciplined, working hard, instead of being out there in the yard doing whatever they do, in there training, doing some pad work, all that sort of stuff, it was absolutely awesome. And I think it would be great to implement into more schools. And I think it would be great for the sport, great for the kids. It's just getting past that political correctness, which is the biggest hurdle. So never know. We'll see what happens down the track. All right, back on point. Usyk has basically fought once a year since 2017, where other guys were fighting 3 times a year, if not more. Yeah, well, the fact he's only had 22 fights in, 10 or 11 years? You're right. Very much quality over quantity, though, I think, Tommy. Mike Tyson knocked out Larry Holmes, Tony Tubbs, Michael Spinks in 88 alone. Not only that, Carl, he knocked them out in the first 6 months of the year. He knocked out Holmes, Tubbs, and then Spinks by the end of June. So 3 fights. Then before that, no, we're getting off point again here. In 1987, he actually fought Berbick in November of 86. He fought Pinklon Thomas in March of 87. He fought, who was after that? Tony Tucker, I think it was in August, and then fought Terrell Biggs in October. So, Bone Crusher Smith, was first. So, sorry, in November of 86, it was Berbick. Then he had 4 fights in 87. Bone Crusher, Thomas, Tucker, and then Terrell Biggs. 4 fights in a year. And if you count the Berbick fight, 5 fights in 14 months. Unbelievable. So that, again, you've got to give Mike Tyson credit. I know it was different back then. But yeah, in 88, he didn't fight again for the rest of 88 though, Carl. But isn't that amazing that he had 3 fights in the first 6 months of 1988? Amazing. You think David Haye's style causes Fury problems? They were supposed to fight. Yeah, I do, Tommy. I definitely think that David Haye would have given Fury problems. I think Fury still would have won the fight, but definitely David Haye would have given Fury some problems, no doubt. I caught the bus past Tua's house in South Auckland ages ago. It was massive compared to his neighbourhood, but he's probably earned a few bucks, so good on him. Pretty rich New Zealand history there, Hanoi. There have been some good fighters there. And I'll just give you a quick little trivia as well. I actually fought David Tua's brother at the 96 Olympic trials. I fought him in Sydney in the Oceania finals. And he was only a welterweight, which is what I was. So it's amazing. His name was Alex Tua. Alex Tua? Was that his name? I think it was. I think that was his name, Alex. Yeah, Alex Tua. He was a welterweight, and his brother's obviously a heavyweight, so amazing. But yeah, just a little nugget to throw in there. Andre says another underrated heavyweight record is the one of Povetkin. Yep, not in this discussion, of course, just mentioning him in terms of underrated record. Well, I think we'll do that, Andre. It'd be good to actually bring up some of the most underrated heavyweights. Prime Mike was a tough out for anyone. Defense was underrated. Cascaded Mike Peekaboo style to counter Ali style. Exactly, Andy. Go back to the early days of Mike Tyson training under Kevin Rooney and especially Custamato. Very, very tough to hit. Just going side to side, but coming at you at the same time like a rocket. The bobbing, weaving, getting close, and when he got in close, it was all over. So, and as I said before, Andy, when he left Kevin Rooney, we just never saw the same Mike Tyson again. All right, guys, got about 8 minutes to go before we call it a night. James Tillis wasn't a bad fight for Tyson in 86. Judges had it 6-4 for Mike, if I remember. James sparred Mike, so I don't think he was scared of him at all. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I'm probably being a bit harsh on Quick Tillis, Tommy. It's a good point there, mate. He did actually have a go, Quick Tillis, as he did against everyone. He was always the go-to heavyweight. I won't say a tune-up, but if you wanted someone that was going to give you the rounds, give you a test, and give you a fight, it was always Quick Tillis, wasn't it? No, Holyfield fought, I think he fought Tillis in his first fight at heavyweight as well. But I used to love Quick Tillis. I remember he came to Australia to fight Joe Bugner. It was great to have him here. But yeah, you're right. It's probably a bit harsh on him to put him in the same category as Tucker and Bone Crusher and those types of guys because he actually did have a go. Tommy, if Fraser could have gotten Mike Tyson past 5 rounds, I think he could have worn him out. I agree. Aussie Joe Bugner, would he do okay today? I don't think so, Hanoi. I don't think he does any better today than what he did back then. I can't see him beating the likes of Fury and Usyk and Joshua and even Wilder and Parker. Odd numbered rounds cut out a lot of draws. It did. Yeah. No, you're right there, Carl. 100%. Big Bob, yeah. Big Bob Mirovic was a good Aussie heavyweight. Yeah, Bob Mirovic, he was a battler. He was a journeyman, I suppose, but he was a lovable journeyman. I used to like watching Big Bob fight. Lost as many as he won, but he always came to fight. Didn't care who, where, when, or how. He would always just jump in and fight. And I got a lot of respect for guys like Bob. Ooh, do you think Roy Jones that beat John Ruiz beats Usyk? That's a good question. Is it Tommy? I think he could have been a good chance. I think I'd still go for... Well, Roy hadn't lost a fight up to then, had he? And that's a good question. At cruiserweight or heavyweight? Well, it'd have to be heavyweight, of course, if it's the Jones that beat Ruiz. I think he could have. I think he could have. Maybe in the back end, maybe Usyk being a lot bigger man might have got on top. But I definitely think that Roy Jones would have been capable of beating Usyk. But I'm still going to just lean on Usyk, I think. Maybe it's more for fitness at that school you went. In Ireland, they have schoolboy boxing comps. That's what I actually said to the guy that I went to today to check it out. Because I did say to him, look, I know over in the UK, schools fight other schools. And he went, wow, he said that would be great. I just doubt we'd ever get that across the line here, Hanoi, because here in Australia, we've got our heads up our asses when it comes to this sort of stuff. They don't see the forest for the trees. Oh, my God, boxing. We can't possibly have that. People get hit in the heads and they're all just Neanderthals, those boxers. They're all just bloody punch drunk. They don't get it. They don't understand the discipline and everything that comes with and a feeling of belonging and having something to strive for. They don't see that. They don't get it. But again, I'm not sure what it's like in New Zealand, but in Australia, we just don't get it. Unfortunately, our government and schools and everything else, they're more concerned about putting up the pride flags and all the rest of it than doing what's right for the kids. So, question for you guys: compare properly the records of Jim Jeffries and Anthony Joshua, per example. Just a fun exercise, in my opinion. There's a bit of homework for you guys. Yeah, Andrew, Hungarian Joe, English Joe, Aussie Joe. Yeah, people forget that he was actually born in Hungary. Usyk, Wilder. I got Wilder tripping over his own feet and a big punch knocking himself out. I could probably see that happening, Buzz. Very tight in my book, both those guys' records. Yeah, Mike KO'd Holmes for Ali. Yeah, he did. That's what he said anyway. There's Glenn. How you going, mate? You're a little bit late because I've got about 4 minutes to go and I'm going to call it a night. Couple more comments there. Fraser was able to land on Ali. Mike would have too, my opinion. We all love Ali and hold him up high, but if you really think about it, yeah, well, not a bad point. I just think Ali would have. See, you got to remember too the accumulation of punches from from Fraser is what dropped Ali. I know it was that big one shot, but it happened in the 15th round or whatever it was, 14th, 15th round, whatever it was. I think Mike Tyson, I don't think he'd be able to get to Ali early. And if he did, I think Ali would be able to take it early. And I just don't think Mike Tyson would have the endurance to pull that shot out late in the fight like Fraser did. So a little bit different, but I get what you're saying there, Andy. My YouTube is saying 0. I got no idea how many he's watching at the moment. Tommy, we don't normally get a lot that watch it live, I will say. We get a fair few that watch it after the fact. But again, it's great having this conversation, even if there is only 10 or 12 or 15 people, whatever in there. Hey, it's better than nobody sitting here doing it myself. Because as I said earlier, there's not much fun in doing a video and putting it out and waiting for the feedback. I like to do it live. So I'm not that stressed about who tuned in live, mate, even though tonight's been fantastic. We got one in the chat, have we, Carl? Geez, I've got 0 at the moment, so I've got no idea. Maybe there is no one watching. Excuse me. Yep, Mike fought 7 times in 85 as a prospect. I think if you go back even further, Carl, to the year before, did he have something like 13 fights or something like that? Just crazy amounts. What do we got? Jones beats Usyk. No way. Yep. Okay. I did say that, Andrew, just to clarify. I said he was capable of winning, but I still did pick Usyk. Well, maybe do we need to have a Wednesday, just another talking boxing, guys, and just bring up whatever, because we're not really talking about Usyk at the moment, but maybe we need a second night of talking boxing. John Ruiz wasn't the best, but he did beat Gallotta, Rahman, Tucker, and an older Holyfield. Yeah, he did. Yeah, yep. Who do you think will make the Hall of Fame from this era? Whoa, okay. Well, I think Usyk would have to put him in line now, wouldn't you? I think there's a asterisk besides Fury and Joshua. Klitschko's, are they already in? Maybe not. I think they are, aren't they? The Klitschko's? Or one of them? Is this the heavyweights you're talking about, JJ, or overall? If it's a heavyweight, I think Usyk's earned himself a spot now. And as I said, an asterisk beside Fury and Joshua. But I would definitely, if the Klitschko's weren't in there, then I'd have to check that. I did go a couple of years ago. And I remember seeing something about the Klitschko's. Or they inducted this year, maybe. Anyway, that's my pick anyway, JJ. Tillis was still quality. in his time. People these days shit on guys out of top 5 in the divisions. Too many casual fanboys disrespecting fighters nowadays. And I do agree with that, Andy, because I remember in Larry Holmes' era, and that's why I always stand up, and even Mike Tyson, I always stand up for those guys. I know a lot of people saying, oh, wow, Holmes, he didn't have the fighters that Ali had in his era and all the rest of it. Well, Holmes, I remember guys like Tim Witherspoon, Mike Weaver, as I said before, David Bay, Carl Williams, Ernie Shavers, Ronaldo Snipes, Jerry Cooney, just beat the best of the best. Some of them maybe weren't at the level that some of the other fighters in other areas are, but you can only clean out your division, and that's what Larry Holmes did, and to a certain extent Mike Tyson did. The only fighter that Mike Tyson never fought that he probably should have to really put that full stop at the end of it was Tim Witherspoon, and the only reason he didn't fight Witherspoon is that Witherspoon lost his belt to Bone Crusher Smith just before he was supposed to fight Tyson. Everyone thought after Tyson beat Berbick, Witherspoon fought Bone Crusher about a month or so after that fight, and everyone expected it to be Tyson Witherspoon next for the WBA and WBC belt, and Bone Crusher stopped him in the first round and hence got the win. It just never happened after that. But apart from Witherspoon, I think he fought everyone of his era, and it's not probably his fault that the Bow fight didn't happen. That was probably after his peak time. I think for just for different reasons, it just never happened. But I'm not going to rate Tyson by not fighting Riddick Bowe. JJ, if Wilder makes a Hall of Fame, then everyone who beats him is a shoo-in. Yeah, surely not. Surely not. Yeah, Glenn, I won't say he's a great fighter, but he was a good fighter. Very, very good, tough, durable fighter, and fought anyone. Usyk, Evander in heavyweight. I'm going to go for Evander in that one. And you're right, Glenn. Wilder is nowhere near a Hall of Famer. He shouldn't even be invited to Canastota to watch in the audience, Glenn. Nowhere near it. Carl, come on, mate. Telling you Wilder will walk into the Hall of Fame. The Americans need a hero with these bogus total defenses. 10 total defenses. Can you believe that? Can you believe they actually managed to get 10 people that were worse than Wilder? Oh, my God. Joseph Parker's now building that body of work that we talked about before. I agree, Andre. Yep. Klitschko's are the only Ukrainians in the Hall of Fame. Well, that will change when Lomachenko retires, JJ. And obviously Usyk retires as well. How are there people commenting if I'm the only one watching? Yeah. Well, I've got 0 watching at the moment, James, so it's got me buggered. But it seems like there's about 20 of you commenting at the moment, so that's all good. All right. I think Joseph Parker is in career best form. I do too. Wilder having the 5th most total defenses ever at heavyweight might get him in, even though I wouldn't agree. Oh, geez, I hope that's not the case. Are you sure it was Bugner versus Tillis? I'm thinking it was Bone Crusher Smith, and fight was stopped because his shoulder popped out. No, Andy, he definitely fought James Quick Tillis, and I've got a feeling, actually I might bring it up as we're talking here, I think it might have been in Joe Bugner's first comeback fight. Let me have a look. Where's the box rec? See if I can find it. All right, box rec. I'm pretty sure it was his first fight in his comeback. Andy? Internet, of course, is nice and slow. All right, it's going to just go round and round here, guys, so I might not. I'll just wait for it to come back. All right, but let me know. I'm sure someone will. I know because he fought David Bay as well. Beat him. I think, I can't remember him fighting Bone Crusher. I know he went and fought Frank Bruno in England, and that was the end of him. He got stopped in the, was it 10th or 11th round, I think it was. Let's have a look. Joe Bugner. Go round and round. Let's see. Make sure I've got, yep, I'm on Starlink, which is good. Right, it's just taking its time there, so I'll come back to that. Get a few comments there. AJ and Parker 2. That's a different fight now. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I still think AJ probably wins that one though, Carl. Who did Wilder beat? Nobody. I agree, Glenn. I'm telling you, he will be in the Hall of Fame. It's laughable, but mark my words, I'll make him a first belt Hall of Famer. Jeez. Tyson versus Witherspoon would have been a great fight. I agree, mate. Would have been an awesome fight. Here we go. Joe Bugner. Nationality, United Kingdom. All right, so it was 1987, I think it was. Where are we? 1986, I should say. Yeah, there it is. So he fought in 84 against Stefan Tangstedt, then retired. Tangstedt, if you can remember, fought Michael Spinks for the IBF title in 87. So he beat James Quick-Tillis in his first fight back, did Joe Bugner. That was in September 86. That was his first comeback fight. Then he beat David Pay. That's right, he beat Greg Page as well. And then went to England and was beaten by Bruno. And we didn't see him for 8 years after that. And that's probably when he fought the likes of Bob Mirovic, Colin Wilson, Bone Crusher Smith was at 98 is when he fought him. So 11 years after he first came back there, mate. Yeah, Tim Witherspoon, such a talent. Amazing to watch. I used to love Terrible Tim Andre. I thought he was a great fighter. A little bit unlucky against Larry too, I thought. How come there's no British style when there's a US and Soviet style? I think there is a bit of a style. It's a bit... Well, I'm not going to do it on camera here, but it's... Yeah, I reckon the British have got a style. Tyson and Bo and Shannon Briggs from same place. They weren't interested in fighting each other. Yeah, that is the case, Andy, but still, you got to put that aside for the best fights, don't you? What style do the Aussies and Kiwis have? I think we all just lead with our head, Hanoi. I think we're all battlers. We're all warriors. We always look. I think the thing is with Aussies and Kiwis, we always come to fight. Now that's to our detriment sometimes because we probably get a little bit excited and get ourselves hurt or knocked out, whatever. But I think one thing you will get from the Aussies and Kiwis is that fight anyone, anytime. Like anyone they'll put up, yep, no worries. It's for whoever it might be. It's over in America to fight whoever. Yep, let's go. Over in England, yep, let's go. That's the mentality. And there's no picking and choosing or whatever. And when they get there, you can be guaranteed that you're in a fight. That's what I will say. Mex Australian with a dash of madman. Yep, that's a good one there. Tim's got his own YouTube channel. Okay, I'll have to check that out. I've had to name one heavyweight on the come up that can carry the torch. Who is it? Oh, that's a really good question, Tommy. I was going to say Justice Honey, but he's got a way to go. He's only had 9 or 10 fights. I think he's suspect with his size and his hands, I think, at the moment. Is Jai Patara an up-and-comer? I think he definitely can do what Usyk has done at heavyweight. Apart from that, though, Tommy, I don't really see a lot, to be honest. We always say that and then someone comes out. Someone appears. Yeah. No, I can't think of anyone, to be honest. What's up there? Start throwing hands. I'm getting a bit old for that, mate. Same in UFC 2 for the Anzacs, 100%, mate. Yes, I love that, Andy. We have the Anzac style. I love it. Aussie Marek Full Mauler style. That's good. Ajit Caballero. Yeah, no, he looks okay. I suppose time will tell, though. Glenn had a good win on the weekend over Frank Sanchez, of course. But, yeah, I'm just trying to think who else there is out there. Is it Hergovich? Probably not. Dubois, are they classified in the uppercomers? I don't know. I worry a little bit that when Usyk, Fury, and Joshua are gone, and even Wilder to some extent, he's entertaining, and Parker, where it's coming from. But there'll be someone. Look, there might be a slight 2 or 3 year gap, but someone will come. Justice Honey is a very interesting young lad. Follow him for years. Keep a lookout for him. I think Jalayev can make some noise if he gets his career moving. Yeah, he's another one. I honestly don't really see anyone that sticks out. I'm with you there, mate. I'm with you. Yeah, he's a pure talent, is Jalayev, but yeah, I don't know. Again, the proof will be in the pudding as we go. All right, guys, I think we've got through all the comments there. It still says no one is watching, so it is what it is. But I think from the comments there's been over the what are we, an hour and 40 minutes, there's been a fair few that have come in and out of the chat. But so for all of you that have tuned in, really appreciate it. And I really appreciate it as well that there's been no malice in the comments, no arguing amongst either with me or each other. And everyone's kept it nice and cool. And remember, it's just opinions, guys. We all have one. And we all see things just a little bit different. So I appreciate everyone being nice and polite to me with my list. Sure, there's a few of you out there scratching your head or shaking your head. But again, it's just my opinion. I'll be happy to see your opinions as well if you put them in the chat or whatever it might be. And next Wednesday, we'll be back with another talking point. There's some good ideas from tonight anyway. So until next week, guys, thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.